Vikshyot kantyam anukshanam Muktastaneshva patyeshvapi Ahetu vida chintayat Rajasya Rama Premade Vikshokantyam anukshanam Muktastaneshva patyeshvapi Ahetu vida chintayat Rajasya Rama Premade Vikshokantyam anukshanam Muktastaneshva patyeshvapi Ahetu vida chintayat
Rajasya Rama Premade Vikshokantyam anukshanam Muktastaneshva patyeshvapi Ahetu vida chintayat
Rajasya Ramana Premade Vikshusya Uttantayam Anukshanam Muktastaneshu Apadyesapi Ahetu Vida Chintayat.
Matajis. Rajasya, of the herd of cows, Rama, Balaram, Premaridhe, because of an increase of affection. Vikshya, after observing. Outkantyam, attachment. Anukshanam, constantly. Muktastanesho, who had grown up and were no longer drawing milk from their mothers. Apatyesho, in regard to those calves. Api, even. Ahetu vet, not understanding the reason. Achintayat, began to consider as follows. Translation. Because of an increase of affection, the cows had constant attachment, even to those calves that were grown up and had stopped sucking milk from their mothers. When Baladev saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it, and thus he began to consider as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The cows had younger calves who had started sucking milk from their mothers, and some of the cows had newly given birth. But now, because of love, the cows enthusiastically showed their affection for the older calves, which had left off milking. These calves were grown up, but still the mothers wanted to feed them. Therefore Balaram was a little surprised, and he wanted to inquire from Krishna about the reason for their behavior. The mothers were actually more anxious to feed the older calves, although the new calves were present, because the older calves were expansions of Krishna. These surprising events were taking place by the manipulation of Yoga Maya. There are two Mayas working under the direction of Krishna. Mahamaya, the energy of the material world, and Yoga Maya, the energy of the spiritual world. These uncommon events were taking place because of the influence of Yoga Maya. From the very day on which Brahma stole the calves and boys, Yoga Maya acted in such a way that the residents of Vrindavan, including even Lord Balaram, could not understand how Yoga Maya was working and causing such uncommon things to happen. But as Yoga Maya gradually acted, Balaram in particular was able to understand what was happening, and therefore he inquired from Krishna. So the verse again. Vrajasya Rama Prema Der Vikshod Kantya Manukshanam Muktastanesh Vapachyesh Vapi Hetuvid Ahetuvid Achintayat. Actually, in the third line, that api and then the of ahetu. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshmana Raman Ki Jai. The E, the last letter of the third line, and the first letter of the last line, A, they're actually Ya, according to the actual Sanskrit. Anyway, so it's sort of slightly unusual rhythm there in the third line. Because of an increase of affection, the cows had constant attachment even to those calves that were grown up and had stopped sucking milk from their mothers. When Baladev saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it, and thus he began to consider as follows. Nama Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirna Vishesha Shunyavadi Bhastya Chadya Shatarne Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyas Kripa Sindhu Bhyavicha. Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, of course, as I'm sure you're well aware, this is the last chapter of the Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada translated and commented on. And there's a video, or it's included in, I can't remember the name of it, but one of the fairly lengthy kind of biographical types of videos of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada lying in his bed in Vrindavan, physically severely incapacitated, and reciting part of the purport of one of these verses, and I actually forget which one it is offhand, but you can see, if you manage to see that, you can just see how incapacitated physically Srila Prabhupada was, but he was continuing with his service, like completely undaunted. Anyway, this is a very wonderful part of Srimad Bhagavatam. And here, the father, the adult men, and the cows were on top of Govardhan Hill. Krishna and the cowherd boys and Lord Balaram and the calves were at the bottom of the hill, and the cows on the top saw the calves, their children, down the bottom, and became just so inspired. The word, or a word used here, is Utkantyam, which is translated here as attachment. It can also, it means not just attachment, but attachment in a mood of real inspiration and enthusiasm, and like one is being driven by that attachment. In this case to the calves who were their children down the bottom of the hill. So the cows, big, heavy cows, accustomed every day to eating lots of very rich green grass, which the farmers, those who are dairy farmers, sometimes they call green gold, because when the cows eat that grass, they produce so much amazing milk. And of course the cows become very big and hefty. So these cows up on top of the hill, they saw their children down the bottom, and there was so much Utkantyam, so much inspiration from attachment. They went running down the hill. And I imagine you've already, have you read? Anyway, they ran down, they galloped down, and probably you're familiar, many of you would be familiar with Govardhan Hill. This is happening at Govardhan Hill. In those days, Govardhan Hill was bigger. It was much bigger. But those cows from the top, even if it was just Govardhan Hill today, they literally galloped down, not trotting. You know the difference. Trotting means 1 foot, then the next, then the 1 foot, then the next. They galloped both feet at the same time. It means full steam ahead. These big, really big, heavy Mataji's came just sort of screaming down the hill. And that's not an easy hill to go running down. We hope it was the, western side and not the eastern side, because the eastern side is almost vertical. But the western side is more gradual slope, but still, to gallop down there, my gosh, you'd have to be very careful. So many rocks and boulders, and it's very uneven. But that was the Utkantyam. That was the attachment, the inspiration, because of their attachment. And of course, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes here, and the verse is also mentioning, that they were particularly attracted not just to the calves in general or their own calves in general, and there was, a couple of calves of each cow there. One of the calves was older, maybe even 2 of them were older, and there was one little young one. The little young one was regularly sucking milk from the udders of the mother cow, and the older one was more or less, at least semi-mature, had stopped that and was just feeding on the grass. But now these mother cows, they were particularly inspired to offer their milk to the older calves who had otherwise stopped drinking their milk for some time. So that's very amazing. And not so much attracted and inspired to offer their milk to the very young little calves, like the fairly recently born calves. And of course, as Prabhupada explains here in the purport, that was because the older ones were expansions of Krishna. The original calves from that sort of generation, you could say, having been stolen by Lord Brahma. And then Krishna expanded into the forms of all of them. And the mother cows then found that they were more attracted to and attached to that generation of their calves more than the very recent generation who were not expansions of Krishna. Yes, so that's all part of this pastime here. I'm sure you've been following it every day. You know the story. Krishna was out there with them. It was Balaram's appearance day. The initial pastime of the stealing takes place on Balaram's appearance day. Balaram was not present. Therefore, he is not aware, even at this point, that actually they were expansions. But initially, first of all, the calves were stolen, and Krishna, out of his affection for his cowherd boyfriends, they were in the middle of lunch. Krishna told them, "You just continue with lunch. I'll go and find the cows and the calves and bring them back." Off he went, couldn't find them, came back, and then now the cowherd boys were gone also. And you can imagine it would have been rather awkward if Krishna had gone back alone that evening and everyone asked him, "Where are our sons? Where are our calves?" And it was just like, well, I don't know. It would have been extremely difficult. So therefore Krishna expanded himself. And even, as Prabhupada explains here, even Balaram was not aware. And this is now plus or minus a year later. It is actually a year later that, well, it's around plus or minus a year later that this is occurring. As I'm sure you're aware, I think it's Brahma-Vaivarta Purana describes how the cows, now that their calves were actually expansions of Krishna, the cows became more attached to their calves than they were before. And because the cowherd boys were expansions of Krishna, and the parental devotees there in Vrindavan were more attached to Krishna than their own children, but now their own children were actually expansions of Krishna, they found they were becoming as attached to their sons as they were to Krishna. And the gopis had always been thinking that we are going to have to marry these cowherd boys. Srimati Radharani will marry Krishna, that's sort of, a given. And we're going to end up with these other boys, ho-hum, how not very interesting when Krishna is there. But now the cowherd boys were forms of Krishna, and even the gopis found they were becoming attracted to the cowherd boys. just like they were attracted to Krishna, and they started thinking that, well, actually, we wouldn't mind marrying the cowherd boys. Yes, it would be nice. Of course, when everything came to a conclusion, and as far as we know, when the original calves and cowherd boys returned, then the expanded forms sort of de-manifested or departed in some way or another. And now, then again, it was the usual calves and the usual cowherd boys. So we don't know what happened, particularly now that a lot of these gopis were married to different of the cowherd boys. Anyway, whatever. So this is very amazing. And as Prabhupada explains here, this is all going on under the control of Yogamaya. There's Mahamaya and Yogamaya. In both cases, Maya means illusion, that which is not. But in one case, it is Mahamaya, it is just the great illusion. Everything is illusion. Nothing is as it seems. Nothing is as it seems. And particularly, we are not as we seem to be. People, living beings, are not what they appear to be. We are all not our bodies. We are all eternal spiritual persons. And we may have a male body now. In our actual, who we really are as eternal spiritual persons, we are probably someone very different from who we appear to be at present from the material point of view. Who knows? Someone is a gopi, no doubt. Someone is a cowherd boy. Someone is older, someone is younger. Someone may be a cow, or who knows? These things we don't know. One devotee approached Srila Prabhupada once trying to express some type of humility and said, Srila Prabhupada, when I go back to Godhead, I will probably just be a blade of grass. Just nothing. Just hopelessly insignificant. And Srila Prabhupada responded, you would be so fortunate to be a blade of grass in Goloka Vrindavan. Is far higher than being temple president of Bhaktivedanta Manor. And it's far higher than being a GBC. You just cannot make any comparison at all. Yes. So here we're under Mahamaya, the great illusion, where nothing really is what it appears to be. But of course everyone is thinking that everything is what it appears to be, and therefore everyone is just almost inextricably entangled in illusion and in this material world. And it's a very pathetic situation and almost hopeless situation. It's very, very terrible. We were reading just a couple of days ago in the Bhagavatam class in South Africa, it was. Anyway, on Monday. And it was, I forget exactly where it was, but somewhere in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada was making the point that in this material world, of course everyone is a spirit soul. Everyone is a spirit soul. But everyone is under the control of Mahamaya. And the way Srila Prabhupada put it was very interesting. Srila Prabhupada said, everyone is under the attack of Maya. Attack, not just under the influence of or somehow or other affected by and confused as a result, but under attack. And we know what it means to be under attack. It means something very aggressive, very powerful, and something which is really trying to devastate us. So actually this is the situation. We're under attack. And what is the nature of that attack? It's one thing if someone attacks you with a weapon physically. It's another thing if someone attacks you verbally with very aggressive, abusive words. So what is the nature of this attack if we look at it in those terms? And the nature of that attack, Prabhupada went on to explain, is that Maya, Mahamaya, is trying to impose on us and in different ways trying to infiltrate us with the enjoying spirit. The enjoying spirit. That idea that here is this world full of all sorts of nice things, and here is me, and, well, this world is here for me to enjoy. So this is the attack of Maya, of Mahamaya, that in different ways, and not just in some sort of, very gross and overwhelming way, although it may be sometimes, but often it's in a very subtle way, like spies and undercover agents and people like that. They try to kind of sneak in and infiltrate in and kind of merge with the existing reality as if they're part of, the nice situation of the usual situation. But actually they're infiltrating in order to destroy ultimately, to actually destroy. Although the way they're attacking, subtle attack, the way they're attacking doesn't look like that. And people may think that they're fine, those people who are infiltrating. Just like in Krishna's pastimes, it was Vatsasura. Vatsasura tried to infiltrate into the calves by assuming the form of a calf and feeling that if he took the form of a calf, then he could just merge into all the calves. No one would recognize him. And then he'd be able to, at some opportune moment, just jump on Krishna and just smash Krishna and kill Krishna. At least that was his idea. Vatsasura. Of course, Krishna understood, and so Krishna killed Vatsasura. But that was Vatsasura's idea, to sneak in undetected, although, and apparently just as part of the group, very nice group. But actually the idea is to destroy. So like this, even with the devotees, with the non-devotees, of course they're completely caught up in that. And they're thinking that the sort of the enemy, in the sense of these different desires to enjoy material life, that actually they're friends, they're good, they should be celebrated. They're very nice. But the devotees understand, or should understand, that these types of ideas that may come, that I can, even though I'm a devotee, still I could do this or that, somehow or other enjoy in a material way within this material world. Yes. And therefore sometimes devotees may find, at least internally, and even sometimes it manifests externally, that they're living sort of a dual existence. That they're chanting and they're practicing Krishna consciousness and doing service, but somewhere in the back of their minds there's some other thing going on from time to time, at least in terms of some sort of contemplation or being attracted, and sometimes it even may manifest outwardly, doing some service but also doing some material activity. So this is Mahamaya. Mahamaya, the great illusion. And sort of, if nothing else, well, not really if nothing else, but certainly it's very important not to underestimate Maya. Don't underestimate Maya. Don't overestimate yourself and your own sort of spiritual strength or whatever, spiritual resolve. Don't overestimate. If you underestimate Maya, overestimate your own spirituality, you have the recipe for a potential disaster. So that's Mahamaya. But then there is Yogamaya. Then there's Yogamaya. And again, it's Maya. It's illusion. It's not really true. But in this case, it's Yogamaya, means it connects us with Krishna. So that, of course, is there in Vrindavan, that generally, in the great number of cases, the devotees, they don't see Krishna as God. They see Krishna as one of the village boys, the most special of all the village boys, and just completely in a class of his own amongst all the village boys. But still, he's one of the village boys. And therefore they love him because he's so special. And the relationships they have with him are just so unique and amazing that they love him unlimitedly. And they are not aware, generally they're not aware that Krishna is God. Sometimes some awareness may be there,